The Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth is such an incredible and exciting collaboration, and I can't wait for all of you to be able to check out the set. But how should you build your sealed or draft deck with it? Good morning, Magic. I'm Gavin Verhey from Wizards of the Coast, and today I'm going to start by running you through a pre-release pack and deck building, then talk about what each two-color pair in the set is doing so you can keep your eyes out for them. Inside a pre-release pack will be everything you need to build a sealed deck. There's a spin down life tracker that you can use to track your life on. There's a code card for Magic the Gathering Arena. You'll also receive one of the 6 pieces of the scene of Bilbo Baggins' birthday celebration. You can't put these into the deck you're about to build, but it's an awesome collectible and you can work with others around you to assemble the full thing. You'll also get a pre-release promo that is a foil rare or mythic rare from the set. This one you can put into your deck and it will have a special stamp on it showing the year. But the heart and soul of what you're going to be opening are your 6 booster packs. These are what you're going to be using to build your deck. You'll bust all of them open, sort them into colors, and start building. Now, what are you looking at making here? You're going to build a 40 card deck, and you can get as many basic lands as you want. You're going to want to play about 17 lands and 23 non-lands, and you're probably going to want to stick to 2 colors. You can sometimes do what's called splashing a 3rd color by playing a strong rare or spell you want if your mana fixing is good enough, but in general, expect to stick to 2. So pick your 2 colors. You can choose by looking for strong cards, like the building blocks of sealed, powerful rares, removal spells, and creatures with evasion mechanics, such as flying. Or you can just pick your 2 favorite colors if you're looking to narrow it down. Using these cards, you're going to want to select your 23 to play. Roughly aim for about 15 creatures and 8 non-creatures, but that's far from a hard and fast rule. What's most important is you have enough ways to win the game. You're also going to want a good mana curve. The idea behind a mana curve is that you want cards you can play at all stages of the game. If your deck is all 2-cost cards, you'll fall behind in the long game. But if your deck is all 6-cost cards, you'll get beat down in the early game. A well-built limited deck usually has a solid distribution of at least 4 2-mana creatures, 4 3-mana creatures, 3 4-mana creatures, and at least 2 creatures at 5 or more mana. You can, of course, go higher on each of those as long as you aren't dropping lower anywhere else. Your mana curve of your non-creatures is good to keep in mind, but it can be a bit more varied because you usually play them on a turn other than what their mana cost is. For example, Goblin Assailant is a card you will play on turn 2, but Gimli's Fury is a card you usually won't. Once you've got your 23 cards narrowed down, add lands and you're good to go. Now, maybe you want a bit more direction. Well, one thing we do with our sets for sealed deck and booster draft is give each 2-color combination a built-in theme. Not every deck is going to necessarily be that theme, but it gives you a direction, and often you'll find some synergistic combinations that point you in that direction. Let me walk you through the 10 color pair themes of the Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth. Blue-white is what we call draw 2. You have cards that trigger if you draw your 2nd card in a turn. You'll want to assemble cards like Knights of Dol Amroth and Stalwarts of Osgiliath, then use draw spells to trigger their effects. Bigger draw spells are great, but on your turn, you only need to draw 1 extra card to get the bonus. So something like Birthday Escape is entirely reasonable here. Both blue-white uncommons are signposts that are quite strong in this deck, so keep your eagle eyes out for them. Moving right along, blue-black is a mass control. In addition to your usual control suspects like card draw, good blockers, and removal spells, this deck wants to use a mass in 2 ways. Both early to trade off and block your opponent's creatures, and then late in the game to overwhelm your opponent with a huge token. The Mouth of Sauron is a signpost uncommon who is particularly good at doing the latter and giving you a huge orc to finish your opponent with. Black-red uses a mass in a different way, a mass aggro. Play aggressive creatures like Easterling Vanguard to attack and make some armies along the way. Instead of getting a big army, you can use sacrifice synergies like Improvised Club and Cirith Ungol Patrol to sacrifice them over and over. In fact, one fun interaction. With March from the Black Gate, you can do a clever trick where you attack with your army token, trigger the march, and then sacrifice the token with the ability on the stack, which will let you use your sacrifice ability and then create a brand new token. Repeat turn after turn with a card like the Patrol for a build your own draw engine. Both black-red signpost uncommons are stellar here, whether you're building up armies or simply sacrificing them. Red-green is power matters, and usually 4 power. This mid-range deck wants to play cards like War Beast of Gorgoroth and Ent's Fury alongside creatures with large power, or they can be pumped up to get more power. Smash them with big creatures, and the signpost uncommon, Strider. A 4-mana 4/4 that grants a +1/+1 and first strike bonus is plenty beefy and can quickly snowball the game in your favor. Are you hungry? Well, it's time for green-white food. Pastries have never looked so dangerous, as cards like East Farthing Farmer and Mushroom Watchdogs turn your food into power. Curve out with aggressive creatures and ways to make food, and then win the long game as your extra food converts into advantage. In this archetype, often you don't want to sacrifice your food for life unless you have to, so keep those food tokens around to be sacrificed or counted in other ways. That is, unless you have Butterbur, Bree Innkeeper, around who keeps serving you food as long as your plate is empty. Eat up. White-black is a classic. Tokens. Now, of course, you're going to want creature tokens, and there are plenty of cards that create them. But the more interesting piece to note is that many of the cards don't just care about creature tokens, they care about any token. So cards like Rosy Cotton of South Lane and Mirkwood Bats look at food and treasure for their effects too. Shadow Summoning is a great way to get a pair of cheap flyers, and Denethor, Ruling Steward, keeps the tokens coming as well. Blue-red is another beloved returning color pair. Spells. Hey, it just works. Erebor Flamesmith and Pelagear Survivor are great low drops to look for, and then you can back them up with cheap spells to get their bonuses. Particularly, be on the lookout for cheap cantrips, such as Hithlane Knots or Birthday Escape, cards that also draw you a card, so you can get plenty of triggers out of a card like Fiery Inscription. And whether you're looking to finish off a creature or your opponent, Gandalf's Sanction can help seal the deal. We saw a little bit of sacrificing in black-red, but black-green is the true sacrifice deck. Get out sacrifice fodder like Haunt of the Dead Marshes or Brandywine Farmer, and then sacrifice them away to something like Cirith Ungol Patrol or the signpost Old Man Willow. This legendary treefolk is a powerhouse of repeated removal, provided you can keep feeding it things to sacrifice. Red-white is an aggressive deck. Go wide humans. Use cards like Protector of Gondor and Rally at the Hornburg to get plenty of creatures onto the battlefield. And then Esquire of the King and Erkenbrand, Lord of Westfold, help make sure they're all sizable threats. Theoden, King of Rohan, is just the card you want to look for here, who can give creatures double strike so they hit even harder. And finally, green-blue is a pretty cool one. Scry. That's right, it's not ramp this time. Nimrodel Watcher and Chancemet Elves gives you a reason to keep scrying, while Lothlorien Lookout gives you a consistent source of scrying. One of my favorite subtle cards here is Council's Deliberation. You can cycle it away early and then exile it when you scry later to draw. But note that draw happens after the scry, so you can dig right to the card you need and then draw it. Pretty cool, right? This deck is elf heavy, and Arwen and Legolas as the signpost uncommons are no exception. Excellent cards you want to pick up here for this strategy if you can. And there you have it, the 10 color pairs of this set. Which one are you most excited to play? Let me know in the comments down below. I'll talk with you again soon, and until then, have fun building with the Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth. You got this.
8 cards to 10 cards can now get all card types. For 1 point, Megan, do you know a card?
With the legendary creature from Phyrexia, all will be one.
Yes. And the comment again, it's in chat, but the comment again is 8 cards to 10 cards can now get